Well, welcome to the Transformational Podcast. I'm Chris, the pastor from Paradise. That is my brother on the other side, the Marine from Maryland.
That's
and
right.
Man,
and
we
the
are.
reason Chris is kicking us off is because we've tried to start this podcast at least 5 times, and I figured Chris would be able to do it.
Sometimes words are hard, Robert.
They are hard, man.
So
hard.
I like to tell people that it's kind of funny that God has called me to communicate for a living, and half the time I can't say words. So, hey, there you go. God uses imperfect vessels.
Well, it is funny, Chris. Yeah, go ahead and finish the lead in. And I have a funny story from this morning. But
so today we're actually doubling up a little bit. Because I'm going to be gone for a little getaway to celebrate my wife and my 20-year wedding anniversary.
What?
You know where you were 20 years ago?
I was in Iraq.
You absolutely were. In fact,
I was in Iraq.
There's a flag behind me.
Yeah,
Michelle,
there it is.
Yeah, there it is right there. That is what you gave to me on our wedding day, because and you sent a video that I wasn't expecting, and all the things.
I do remember that, yeah.
So I think that's fitting. It's because we're recording on Memorial Day, so this is going to be dropped a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
I think it's fitting because that was 20 years ago. So we're going to go.
Did you know that I was in Iraq for your wedding and Lou Ellen's wedding?
Yeah.
I was in Iraq for both. Luckily, I was not in Iraq for my wedding.
That's good. That's good. I still remember your wedding.
It was fun.
And yeah, it was great. It was great. Yeah. So that flag flew on the base in maybe Fallujah, or was it
outside? We were out in outside. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know which one it was.
I may have flown it in the back of a 130 while doing combat ops.
Really?
Stuff like that. Things and stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, you've never told me that before, so that's really cool. I just got the
surprise
certificate.
Did you know that now we're off to the races? So sorry, you guys are about to get fun. You guys are about to be in a conversation that we don't normally have. But I want to say it was last Veterans Day. It may have been last Veterans Day, last fall. Something I don't normally do, because I don't normally talk about the past, don't normally talk about all the stuff that I've done. I opened dinner in the family, inside the family. On my side, I was like, y'all can ask me anything, because we don't really talk about my service here in the house. It's not necessarily, our life isn't centered around that. I told someone, was it 2 weeks ago? I said, I don't want my son to know me as a Marine. I want him to know me as somebody who loves Jesus.
Yeah.
And so, and I said, I think I've succeeded in that.
Not that a Marine can't love Jesus, but I get what you're saying.
Well,
in the same way, yeah.
I think I've succeeded in that, because he asked me if I was in the Army once, and I was just like, oh, that hurts my heart, buddy.
Oh, that's so good.
No, you're right, Chris. It's not that there's anything wrong with that, or that Marines can't be Christians or Christ followers. It's just the perspective and how I see what God allows me to do.
But no. Several Marines here at our church who listen, and so they'll get a kick out of that. And actually, we just have a family who's come maybe 2 or 3 times that he's a recruiter for Army. He was up in DC for a while, and they just moved to the area. He's a recruiter for Army, and yesterday he was like, well, let him. I've introduced him to my son. He said, let me know after he graduates if you want to join the Army. I said, I think my Marine brother might have something to say about that.
Yeah, we might find something else for him to do. I'm just kidding. I love all the services equally.
Absolutely.
Everybody does an awesome thing when they serve their country. Hey, Chris, what you had some sort of a quarterback clinic yesterday. What's that about?
So there's a guy who does a quarterback training down the road from us a little bit that my boys have been a part of for a little. I did it last year. He's a godly man, and I love this. He's a godly man. He serves at his church. He helps lead. He played quarterback in college.
That's awesome.
And does quarterback training. He brings faith to his training. So every night he talks about his faith at the end. He brings them all up.
I love it.
The word of the day last night, the word was comparison. He's like, hey, don't be comparing yourself to other people. God didn't make you to be better than other people. He made you to be exactly who he made you to be. And
that's right.
And don't be comparing your walk with Jesus to other people. So I love it because he brings
that's fantastic.
The two together. So just an idea for those who may coach Little League or coach different sports. And man, it's a great way to bring faith, to that moment. And you just say, hey, look, guys, one of the most important things to me isn't this sport. It's actually who Jesus is. And so, man, I'm just going to share some things along the way because here's what's great. You don't have to be a Christian to learn something from that, right?
Yeah.
The comparison will kill you no matter whether you believe in Jesus or not, right? Yep. And so he's bringing just truth from Scripture. Here's what I love, and I heard someone else say it, and I've held on to it since, is that, man, following God's way and God's truth in Scripture, it'll make your life better and it'll make you better at life. It's just the way of, so you don't actually have to believe in God or Jesus. It's just because it's true. So last night we did that, and it was our first time back, and man, Brock had not done it before. He went and ran routes, and man, he is so good. I was proud of him.
I could see him doing that.
Yeah, proud of him. He's on the bubble of saying, man, I kind of want to do the quarterback thing. Not sure, but man, we're Robert, why not? We'll just roll into this. We're rolling into this deal. I'm trying to teach my boys goals. This is not what the podcast is about today, but just trying to teach them goals, and that, hey, goals without a plan is just a wish. And we're not part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So we got to figure out how to get to our goal. And so teaching them how to put together a plan, and a tangible plan of, hey, daily. And so I have a goal worksheet that I set out for him. It's like, hey, Monday through Friday, or I think it's actually all week. It's got days. What am I going to do each day? Doesn't mean you have to do something for this every day. Okay. In a week, are you going to work on it 3 times a week? Are you going to work on it 4 times a week? What does it look like? And what's your plan on those days? And so just trying to work with them to help them learn that. Because, dude, I don't really care about the sports side of things.
No, you're giving them a tool.
That follows you throughout life. That's what I love about sports, man. And those people who man, you're bent on your kids succeeding in sports. It is such a small fraction of their lifetime. And so, man, don't get so hyper focused on that. But I would just say what I've learned as a student pastor. By the way, I'm not saying this as a parent who hasn't figured it out. It's as a guy who did student ministry for almost 20 years. And I was like, man, there are a lot of people putting a lot of effort into a small window of a kid's life. And they get done with that, and everybody hangs up their cleats one day. So then what? And so I would rather use that opportunity to use sports to teach them about life. And so it's just something God taught me. I'm sure I learned it from somebody.
I think what you just described applies no matter whether you're sporting or if you're artsing or whatever. Anything that requires time and talent, and sometimes treasure, anything that requires time and talent to be good at, to move from beginner level to mastery of the level, right? Joshua and I had a conversation about drums at one point. And, I said, hey, man, you got to put in the grind. You got to work, because if you don't work, your talent only takes you so far. It is and I told him, I said, here's the thing, man. I was like, I don't care if you do drums or don't do drums. I don't really care what you do. What I want you to learn to do is know that anything that you want to do well requires effort. It requires work. It requires putting in a thing. Well, anyways, Chris, before we jump in, man, you said a bunch of different things there that made me go like, yes, that applies to what I want to talk about today. You did say one thing that made me laugh, which was, you said that he gives them a word of the day. Well, this morning I was having breakfast with Joshua, and I said, you know what you really miss out on that we had growing up? You know what he misses out on? He misses out on Reader's Digest, Chris.
That's right.
The word of the day. Remember the words? And
y'all did that way more than me. That's why y'all have better vocabulary. Once again, why I think it's funny that I communicate for a living.
It is hilarious.
That's all right.
Because I started dropping words that he didn't know, and I would, I'd make him look it up. It was funny.
Listen, our dad uses words that I'm like, there's probably 1% of humans on this earth who knows what that means, but that's all right.
What that word means. Yes, exactly. Now, it was funny. We were doing that this morning, but the other thing you were talking about is how to incorporate, or not incorporate, but fold in, to make just faith such a natural part of what you do. One of the things that happens to me, and this is as I was reading, I was in 1 Kings, because that's kind of where I'm at in the Bible, my Bible reading. 1 Kings 3 has to do when Solomon asks for wisdom, and we'll get to the whole thing of it. There's so much to talk about in this section of scripture. I'm going to try to keep it, try to keep us on the lines of talking about wisdom.
Yeah.
But folks will ask me and they'll say, hey, and these are Marines or other professionals who come by and say, hey, how did you do this? What's your approach to that? And what do you think when you do this? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to learn whatever approach or whatever skill I've developed over the years to do whatever it is that I'm doing. And for the longest time, Chris, I know what the answer is. The answer is I prayed a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's my answer most of the time. I prayed a lot and then I thought, okay, what do I need to do? And then maybe I sought someone else who had some experience. And for some time I was like, well, do I tell them that? Do I tell them like I prayed a lot? Do I give them the Jesus answer, or do I give them like that? I went and sought, counsel, and then I thought about blah, 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 and then try to explain something that really was a Jesus moment. And the thing that I'm starting to do more than anything, Chris, now is I just straight up, well, I prayed a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed a lot about it. Like I know what people expect to see. So I do create that because that's what they expect to see. That's like, if you want a drum set, you're not going to give them a piano. I just use that as like a thing. Like if they're expecting a drum set, you give them a drum set. Like,
right.
Don't be surprised if you give them, something they didn't ask for. The question is sometimes it's in the delivery of it. And then how do you do that? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I seek wisdom. And so as I was reading in 1 Kings 3, I was sitting there, I don't want to say lamenting. Lamenting is probably not the right word, but I was reminiscing what it would be like to be the wisest person on the planet.
Yeah.
Like so wise that God literally goes through, or, they record a bunch of different people's names on the people he's going to be wiser than. He's like wiser than the people from the East. And, by the way, you're going to be wiser than this person and that person, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, man, Lord, I need that level of wisdom. What would it be like to be able to lead my team with that level of wisdom? And I think as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, Chris, we should talk about this. But I was like, it's a common story. And I was like, maybe people don't want to talk about the thing that we talk about all the time. But it reminded me, well, actually, people sometimes they don't know this as well as we think we do. And so I would say, like, let's pick up in 1 Kings 3. Let's hit, if I could, I'm going to hit verse 3, actually. And then we'll kind of step through the next 2 chapters, which I think we can't hit all at once. We can't read it all at once, but we'll read parts of it. So,
okay, go for it. Let's try to summarize it as great as possible, because like I know what you're trying to do. It's a great story and there's a lot of words, but I think hitting it here and there will help tell the story. But
that's
if
what I'm looking to
we're
do.
Missing, I'll try to fill in here and there if there's any gaps. So go ahead.
Yeah. So Solomon loved the Lord. He followed all the decrees of his father David, except that Solomon too offered sacrifices and burned incense at local places of worship. The most important of these places of worship was at Gibeon. So the king went there and sacrificed 1,000 burnt offerings. That night, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream and says, "What do you want? And I'll give it to you." Solomon replied, "You showed great and faithful love to your servant, my father David, because he was honest and true and faithful to you. And you have continued to show this great and faithful love to him today by giving a son sit on his throne." And it says, I'm going to skip forward. It says, "And here I am in the midst of your chosen people, a nation so great and numerous they can't be counted. Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself is able to govern this great people of yours?" We'll pause.
All right. Couple things real quick.
Yeah.
I think it matters just to give you just a little bit of context from the idea that his father had just died and Solomon inherited the throne. Most scholars believe he's between 12 and 20 years old when he became king. The kingdom he was given was the most powerful Israel that had ever been. There were political enemies, unresolved tensions, enormous expectations. So he's a young man who's inherited something that is way bigger than he is ready for. And so it makes this prayer at Gibeon so much more powerful, because he's praying from a position of of going, I don't know what to do, right? Of I don't even know where to go from here.
I don't even know where to start.
I think the other thing to set up is that we see a guy who's not perfect, but he's still pursuing God. Because and you skim through this and this fun, but the chat opens the chapter with him making a political alliance with Egypt after marrying Pharaoh's daughter, which is something God told them not to do.
Not to do,
right? It even tells us that he loved God and followed his father's ways, except he was still sacrificing at local places
temple.
of worships that were not honoring God. So you see this person who is desiring to know from God. He knows where real truth is found, but yet he's not perfect. He's still caught up a little bit, and maybe it is that he doesn't know yet.
Have you ever been in that moment where you're like taking over something? Like, when you like try to catch the bus, have you ever caught the bus and then you're like, well, man, what am I going to do with this thing? Have you ever been in that moment where you're Solomon and you're like, oh man,
Robert, I feel like I've been in the lead pastoral for 5 years, and I tell people I get to stand on the shoulders of a spiritual giant, man.
Right.
Like what God did with Pastor BJ here is incredible, and there was almost that feeling, that human feeling of, gosh, don't screw this up, right? Don't suck. It's kind of you have that feeling a little bit, but also then God starts moving and doing things, and really, Robert, one of the things that I think was daunting to me was the idea of building. It was something about being a lead pastor that I really didn't want to. It's like, Lord, I'm not really that
let someone else do that.
Not really that interested in building buildings, God. I just want
let someone else
build your church and lead people. And then like he multiplied the church. Like in 5 years, it's more than doubled and it's still growing like wild. And I've had so many moments where I'm like, I don't know. People are asking me questions. I'm going, I'm not sure yet. And really it just comes down to, I've never done this before. I'm still trying to, and I'm asking God, because I also look at it and go, I mean, we've talked to a lot of consultants. It's not been without seeking wisdom and insight, but you have all these different people with different stories and different situations and circumstances. And I'm looking and going, this doesn't really fit any of them, but there's something we can learn from all of them. But at the same time, I'm still going, but God, what do you want to do here? Because it's your church, not mine. And that's one of the things I feel like I lean into here that I learned from Solomon that I applied in this moment is Solomon's leaning in this moment and going, give me an understanding heart so I can govern what? Your people well.
Yeah.
Because these are not my people. They're your people, God. And so really it's something that stuck out to me in scripture several years ago. And I began to lean into it of recognizing that what God has given me to lead, it is not mine. And I think that would be true whether it was the church or it was a business or it was, whatever role in life, whatever profession, it is not my role. It is what God has given me to do. And so, God, will you give me wisdom to do it in such a way that honors you? And man, I need to do it in such a way that is beyond my own ability and my own reason and my own logic. And really, I feel like that's the prayer he prays here.
I think that's the starting position you see here. You demonstrate even in your discussion or your description of how you approached it to even the description of the way you started when you talked about Solomon here is, somewhere between 12 and 20. It's coming to not just the understanding, but coming to the situation, acknowledging like I don't have it all. And I have it's a humble starting point or baseline. And I think the moment when we start feeling like we have it worked out or figured out, that's the dangerous moment to me.
Yeah.
And so I really do try to make sure that as I'm moving along and in my career and the rest, that's not the way I approach it, because I know with certainty there's several times where I'm like, oh, I got this, buddy. I did not have it. Didn't have it. And so I think that's the appropriate approach. I think the request from Solomon here is pretty interesting. He asks for wisdom. And that's something that I do a lot of times is I will enter a new job and I say, Lord, give me wisdom to know how to lead in this position that reflects you, that reflects well for you. I was talking to an engineer this last week and I was explaining that while flawed, One of my desires is to serve him and serve him well. In other words, do everything as if unto the Lord with an attitude of excellence, so that I can draw the light of glory onto Jesus, onto God. And so now when people ask me, hey, how do you do things? I think that's why I'm just more plain language, like, hey, I pray a lot. And then, I go get the thing they expect. But then I pray about how to talk about it, present it, approach it, because there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And we talked in a couple podcasts ago about conventional wisdom. The world's way of doing it sometimes is the way we just kind of just generically go that way. And you talked about bringing folks in to help you to provide with godly counsel, wise counsel, and the rest. And so sometimes I'm sure they've given you something that totally seems logical, but it's not something that God's actually giving you guidance or giving you direction to do. And so what you see here is you see Solomon not just asking, but he's asking and now he's listening. He's asking, hey, Lord, I need wisdom. And then he goes and he listens, right? Wisdom's not just about getting the word. Yeah. If you get it, then you don't actually do anything with it. That's equally unwise. And so it's fascinating there. Anything else in this one? He does have
I would say
before we keep moving. Go ahead.
I find it interesting. He doesn't necessarily summon God for this question. God meets him there, right?
Yeah.
God shows up. He goes to Gibeon to worship and make offerings, and God shows up in response. And I say that because I think it's important to know that seeking God genuinely positions you to encounter him.
Absolutely.
Right. You don't manufacture the encounter, you position yourself for it. It's showing up. It's seeking him, not seeking what you want from him. Solomon did not go to God to get something from him. He went to God to celebrate who he was. And God showed up.
Yes.
Right? And God showed up and said, hey, and he asked the question, what do you want? Right. So I love that too. That's the question that even Jesus asked. If you think in the New Testament, blind Bartimaeus, he asked him, what do you want me to do? Wasn't it kind of obvious?
Yeah,
I think it's good for us sometimes that God wants us to articulate, this is what I want. This is what I need.
Brother, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to do that more often, actually, I think. I think sometimes we just assume that our voicing of a complaint, I'm going to use the word complaint, is a request. And a lot of times it's not a request. So sometimes, for example, I'll just be very, very plain language on this one. Instead of, Lord, this is really hard, it might be, Lord, this is really hard. And this is explicitly, this is specifically what I'm asking to happen. This is specifically what I'm asking you. Not my will, Lord, but yours. But if you're asking what I want, this is specifically what I'm asking for you to do. And I think, I don't know if Solomon was ready for this question, if he had been like thinking about it and that's what generated the question, or if he just wisely asked the right question.
But at the same time, like, he appears to him in a dream, right?
Yeah, right.
While Solomon is at rest, he's not even striving at this moment.
Right.
He's asleep, and he's not striving. He's not performing. And I say that because I think sometimes people don't recognize that God is, we'd be asking, we might be asking God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to see? What do you want to whatever? Like, we're having maybe dreams at times. Maybe God's trying to tell you something in a dream. Maybe he wants to speak to you. The reality is that, hey, we've got to be open to God speaking to us, however God wants to speak to us. But God asked him this question in a dream, and he responds to him this way in a dream, which I think it also reveals the honesty of Solomon's heart. This isn't a pretense. This isn't false humility, right? He's not going.
No, this is really where he's at.
I think it's just coming from his soul of going, I don't know what to do, God. If you don't show up, Robert, when I was the first time a student pastor, I still remember this moment. I could almost go back and I can see the moment.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of those real moments.
A lot of people don't know this. I got to be a student pastor or was given student pastor responsibilities when I was 19 years old at my home church in an interim role. I basically stepped in when our student pastor became the college pastor. They need someone in the summer to be the student pastor. So I stepped in as the student pastor for a summer into a student ministry that I was the Yahoo the year before in that same student ministry. So it's crazy, dude.
You were the one burning down the house the year prior.
And then from then on, God continued to give me opportunities to lead, but I'd never really been in a role where I was in charge. I mean, yes, I was in charge, but I was interim. But I still had student ministry roles from that point on. I graduate college. I get this opportunity here at Grace Fellowship. I'm the first student pastor here, and I get to basically set the path and the strategy and the structure and all that. I remember finishing a time with God I lived in a van down by the river. Not really, but it felt like that, right? Did you ever see the shack?
I did see the shack.
Okay, so it was it was a place to live.
It was a place to live. And it was close to fishing.
And it was close to fishing. And as a bachelor, God provided and he took care of me. It was great. But I got telling, I was sitting in a chair that was a hand-me-down chair that somebody had given me because I didn't have furniture. And I get done, close my Bible, and I go, God, I don't know what to do like today. Like, I don't know what it looks like to move this thing forward. I know how to tell stories. I know how to talk about Jesus. I know how to lead worship. But I don't know what does it look like to build services. And like, I didn't even have that language at the time.
Right.
Like, I didn't even know what I didn't know. And I had that very, very honest moment. I think sometimes, God meets you in those moments. And that's what happened here is I think he had just this soul level, honest conversation inside of him that was waiting to happen. God shows up and he goes, yeah, God, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I need your help.
Let's talk about how God answered it. So there's two different examples here on how God answers it. It's in the rest of chapter 3. We won't actually talk about that one. That's not the one I want to talk about. It's in chapter 4. Yeah. I'll summarize chapter 3. Chapter 3, two women had babies. One of the women accidentally rolled over and killed her baby, stole the other woman's baby in the middle of the night. They lived together. They were the only ones there. Solomon solves the problem by saying, hey, let's cut the baby in half. The mom, who's actually the mom, says, no way, don't do that. Just give it to the other woman. And of course, the other woman's like, yep, cut it in half. And her brain is like, if I can't have my kid, you can't have your kid. Solomon solves it and says, okay, yep, you're the wife. You're the mom, and gives the kid back over. That's how he solves it. It was such a masterful solving of a problem. Everybody's like, this dude's got some wisdom. That's not really necessarily where I want to go. This is where I want to go. And it's actually, go ahead.
Got to give you one more piece. This is important.
Yeah, no, go.
A Hebrew note, all right?
From Hebrew note, okay.
Where he says, verse 9, give me an understanding heart. That word understanding heart is a word that means a listening heart or a hearing heart.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome.
That he's not asking for intelligence or cleverness. He's asking for the ability to hear God, to be attentive to God, to truth, to people. But real wisdom in a biblical sense begins not with speaking, not with knowing a bunch of stuff,
but with
learning to listen, dude. Man.
Yes.
In today's day and age, everybody has a lot to talk about. And Robert, I have this moment sometimes. I just saw something the other day that some, leadership guru, he's trying to tell us, all these things about how to lead your staff and has these strong opinions. And I'm like, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. Like, what's this? So I dig into his bio and I'm like, he has no business telling people how to do this. He just has an opinion because he read a bunch of leadership books and he's created a theory and some ideas based on what he thinks, but he's never sat in a place where he's learned to listen to people and learn from other people. Like, why would he be the person that people go to? So I say that because I think a lot of times there's a lot of people who think they're wise because they read a book, because they went to a seminar, because God gave them success. The key to Solomon's wisdom was not being the expert.
That's right.
It was being a listener and learning from others and being willing to look for and listen for truth. All right. Sorry. That was so much to that piece that I thought was important.
Well, I'm glad you added it, because what we're going to talk about in this next section it demonstrates quite a bit of that. I'm going to skip some section and I'm going to come back.
Okay.
Because to hit what you're talking about in verse 30, No. It's this chapter 4. Yes, chapter 4, verse 33. It says he could speak with authority about all kinds of plants, the great cedar of Lebanon to the tiny hyssop that grows from the cracks in the wall. He could also speak about animals, birds, small fish, small creatures, and fish. And everyone from every nation sent ambassadors to listen to the wisdom of Solomon. And I think, Chris, you aren't able to speak about all that stuff unless you actually stop and listen to people teach you about it. I think it is a listening heart. He had developed a listening heart. But I'm going to go back because I was sitting on the front porch yesterday. I was just taking some extra time. It was Sunday, so sometimes I like to spend a little extra time on the front porch in the Word. And Joshua came out and he joined me on the front porch for just a couple minutes. And it was right as I read verse 22. And verse 22 says the daily food requirements for Solomon's palace were 150 bushels of choice flour, 300 bushels of meal, 10 oxen from the fattening pens, 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 goats or sheep, as well as deer, gazelle, roe, and choice poultry. And that to me seems incredible. It seems immense. Like the enormity of that is something I really was trying to get my head around. And so I looked up. I'm like, what is 150 bushels of choice flour? Like, how much is that? How much is a bushel? A bushel is 36 cups of flour. Single bushel is 36 cups of flour. If you were to go in and say, hey, five cups to make a loaf of bread, for example, 5 cups to make a loaf of bread, you're looking at over 1,000 loaves of bread every day just from flour.
Wow.
And then it's
and that's that's some carbs for Christ right there, bro. So gee whiz.
The enormity of his kingdom, of his palace, and the rest is something I don't think we can actually I don't think we can even comprehend it. And it's really interesting because people from all over come to him to see how his palace, how his entire kingdom is run, because it's run with such skill and precision that other folks are trying to learn from it and duplicate it. And that was his house. In fact, you talk about God gave him wisdom. In verse 29, it says God gave Solomon very great wisdom and understanding and knowledge as vast as the sands of the seashore. In fact, his wisdom exceeded that of all the men of the East and wise men of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone, including Ethan the Ezrahite and the sons of Malo. And then his fame spread throughout the nation. First of all, I'd love to see my name. I'd love to see my name. He was wiser than anyone, including Robert, the Marine from Maryland.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm kidding. It's a joke. But
that's the Marine way.
Yeah, I know. But I think that, when God answered his request for wisdom, it wasn't an answer. It wasn't a small response. It wasn't something that was that got him through the day. And I think a lot of times when I'm asking for wisdom, and this is where I'm going with this, and this is kind of the lesson I was learning. Sometimes when I'm asking for wisdom, sometimes I feel like I'm asking for just enough to get it through the day. And I don't think that that's what God wants to give me. I think God's like, no, I'll give you more than that.
I'll
wisdom I can give you. Wisdom I can give you plenty of. I just ask for a little more. Open your perspective.
Yeah.
Broaden your view there.
Now, here's what I also want to point out is that his wisdom was not just about spiritual things. Now, I would also say that everything is spiritual, by the way. We separate spiritual and physical. But it's about all areas of life. I think that when God begins to give you a listening ear, an understanding like this, which also another note, a Hebrew note, when people talk in the Hebrew language about listening, it was listening. It was not listen to know. It was listen to respond. True listeners listen and respond, like they apply it. It was
respond,
not
okay. When you said listen to respond, I was thinking when people listen to respond. You're like you're not listening to anything.
It wasn't listen to gain knowledge. It was listen to apply. So he's listening to gain understanding, which also makes me think of the book, The Habits of Highly Effective People by one of the Covey guys. When you're in talking to people, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
One of them is seek to listen first, or seek to understand first, then to be understood. Here's part of our problem when we are listening to someone is that we don't have a listening ear with this kind of listening that goes, no, I want to listen to understand so that I can apply, so that I can grasp better way of approaching this. No, typically we have our preconceived ideas of the way that things are supposed to be. And the minute they say something that is slightly out of that box, we're already building our argument in our head rather than listening with that kind of ear that says, no, let me understand. And sometimes it's not even just understanding what they're saying, it's understanding where they're coming from.
Hey, yeah, there you go.
It's understanding, sometimes it's not just listening to what they're saying, it's listening to what they're not saying. And going, all right, God, give me a listening ear that helps me understand what the real thing is here, what I need to understand. Because here's the thing, he had wisdom about all birds and fish and plants. And why would a king need that kind of wisdom? Well, because he had a listening ear, and in
sat around and listened to people.
And he didn't stand around and talk. He sat around and listened. I imagine, Robert, because of this, when these people came in, I'm just curious, like, how many questions did he ask? They're asking questions.
Had to ask something.
But the picture I get of a guy who goes, man, I need a discerning ear, a listening ear. I need an understanding ear. That he's not just saying, all right, come on in, I'll give you the 5 steps to success. He's going, tell me what's going on. All right, what's behind that struggle? Well, tell me more about that. Who's in that role, and tell me more about them. And I don't think.
And what next step should I do? What would be a good next step to apply this? What would be a good way to take what you just gave me and turn it into something real? Like that's the response that Chris is talking about, not the response as in like I have words to counter what you're saying, but response as in like, I'm going to take action. I'm going to take action on the wisdom I just took in, or the knowledge I just took in.
Yeah. No, it's saying, fantastic. Hey, I recognize there's probably more than just one way to see this world. God's given everybody unique ways to see this world. So what can I learn from every person that God puts in front of me? God, give me a discerning ear, a listening ear, an understanding ear, so that I can grow in wisdom. And he grew in wisdom. Like God gave him wisdom. But I also like that because God didn't just magically put wisdom in his heart. He gave him a wise, a listening ear, an understanding ear. He gained wisdom because he was humble enough to listen and receive and understand. And God built his wisdom that way. I mean, when you look at that word just, when I saw that a minute ago, I was like, oh my gosh, what weight does that carry with it? I think sometimes we think he woke up and he was just the smartest man alive. He was the most interesting man alive. And he said, stay thirsty, my friend. Like that's not really what he did, right?
That's not it at all. Yeah. I think so. Anyway, I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to not just talk about this piece of it, or about the, rehash the wisdom of Solomon, but put it in a light that if you're listening and you're like, okay, so I got it. Solomon was wise. He's the wisest person on the planet. Chris did a pretty good job of explaining what real wisdom is. It's a listening heart. It's a showing up with the humility to say, I don't know it all. It's that maybe that childlike posture that says, I don't have it figured out. I'm not going to try to pretend like I've got it figured out. I'm going to come and listen, being receptive to the truth. And then asking the question, like, how do I apply that? How do I turn that over? I know that sometimes, Chris, I personally pray, I say, Father, give me wisdom and a listening ear. Help me to hear and see the things that I wouldn't normally hear, and the things I normally wouldn't see. And that's the way I enter some of my most, we'll call it contentious situations. So if you're going to bring us home. Which is a big deal,
because typically you go into those and you may already know what's coming. You may already be frustrated, or that this relationship is always a little bit tense. And so you're typically not as open. And so going into it with going, no, God, help me respond with wisdom by helping me hear what I need to hear and see what I wouldn't normally see. Like it's just it's an approach of humility. So yeah, dude.
Yeah. So bring us home. You got any pastor, I
don't know,
pithy statements, or do we?
I mean, I think there's some of the thing that I would look at and just say, what does it look like in your life to ask God for a listening heart in everyday life? Like, are you open? Are you truly seeking God, saying, God, Or do you think that you've got most of it figured out? You just need God in specific areas, or you just need God when you're desperate? Or will you be like Solomon and go, God, I recognize that your wisdom is far greater. So God, will you give me an understanding heart like Solomon had? Will you help me listen, not just to people, but to your truth in such a way that helps me understand and retain what I need to retain and apply what I need to apply. But here's what I love about this picture that we see here is that God shows up for imperfect people who genuinely seek him.
Amen.